what is he calculating?
Well, it seems intense.
Is there anything to calculate in the position? It's just about grouping the pieces together in a constructive way. I liked your idea, David. I think you have to be little bit sly in how you approach that idea, because you need to do it when the White King has gone off on a little bit on an adventure. OK, so he's repeated the move with his king, and now will Magnus repeat his idea?
So this is the second time we've seen this exact position. If they continue to move around with the kings, which is looking quite likely, then we would have a draw. It would be a threefold repetition, same position 3 times. The game is declared a draw. But, OK, Magnus is the one thinking now, despite the fact he's down to 20 seconds, he's debating whether he can continue playing. And Magnus Carlsen plays for the win. He doesn't go for the draw, which Nakamura quite likely would have taken. And Magnus grabbing a pawn, but allowing the pride and joy of his position, the white pawn in the centre, to be taken off the board, to be snapped off. And White has created a pin. White's a piece down for only 2 pawns, a bishop for 2 pawns. That's bad for White, but he has created a pin. Black's rook cannot move because the king would be under fire from the white queen. So can either side improve? Is there any way to put pressure on that black rook? Is there any way for Black to break that pin over the next few moves?
Well, Magnus has given a check with the queen to the centre, and all the while the clock is ticking down. Magnus Carlsen steps aside with his king, and he has 36 seconds left on the clock. And look at Hikaru's king. It is out there in the middle of the board. That has to be terrifying.
Scary times now for Nakamura. So that must be why he made this face, because he saw what was coming. And now the black king in danger. The black rook, note, it's still pinned. If Black plays rook takes rook right now, Black's queen would be under fire suddenly from the white queen in the centre of the board. So Black's rook, it's frozen. It can't move. Black maybe needs to first improve his queen. He could also maybe move his bishop. Lots of choice now for Hikaru Nakamura, but he has to be careful. Also, pawns have started disappearing. If all of Black's pawns disappear, White is out of danger. So Magnus, being very sneaky and very practical, he's removed a bit of risk and he's still setting traps for Nakamura. And look at the clock times. Both sides now down to under 40 seconds. It's all about the nerves.
Yeah, definitely. And David, that is actually a very natural move. That is actually a big mistake. It's a big blunder in the position. And Hikaru has made the big blunder. This is a huge, huge blunder. And the reason is because Magnus can sidestep with the queen 1 square and give a check. And Magnus has done it.
The only winning move as well.
Yeah.
And Nakamura, he's put his queen on a bad square. That was the move I thought was most natural as well. But he has fallen into a trap. Now, Nakamura, wherever he puts the king, White will simply play...
Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook check. And now the big problem is that after rook takes rook, Hikaru cannot capture the rook with the queen, and he cannot capture the rook. Magnus doesn't see it. OK, maybe he's just repeating. OK. Ooh.
He'll repeat once, and then he'll try for the win.
Is he just playing with his food now?
Yeah, well, what is happening, David?
Yeah, so Magnus, he will play rook takes rook. There we go, the rooks have disappeared. He repeated that to gain 20 seconds on his clock, gaining 10 seconds after every move. White is 2 pawns up and completely winning. All he has to do is avoid the checks. And I think Black's checks are going to run out. Nakamura, look at it. He realises he thought he could make a draw by continuously checking the white king. But White's king will actually just hide at the side there. OK, Black didn't have enough checks, so he starts grabbing pawns. White's just a pawn up. Queen endgames. We saw Nakamura lose one yesterday to Mamedyarov. This one should also be lost. But still some hard work to be done. So Magnus Carlsen finding that great, well, setting a trap, finding that great continuation, playing for the win, but still has to finish this one off.
So Hikaru's going to be annoyed now. He missed this.
Yeah, he missed it, and now he just has to beg for a draw. There's 2 results possible, white win or a draw. Most likely going to be a white win, and that's psychologically so difficult when you've got less than a minute.
Oh, yeah. And it's also psychologically difficult because, as David says, you know, Hikaru was doing OK. He had just kind of turned the tables. He was doing some good defence, and then suddenly a big blunder, and it's all gone downhill. And, OK, the win still needs to be found. Magnus still needs to play good moves because there is a high chance of there being a perpetual check. So, but OK, Hikaru now with 20 seconds left on the clock, and it's ticking down. He needs to find a safe space to put his king, and he moves one step down. And now the dream for Magnus is if he were to be able to do a check, which actually swaps off queens.
Yeah. If the queens disappear from the board, white is winning. White has a 2 versus 1 advantage on the left, and even if black's king goes after those pawns, white's king will go after black's pawn on the right, and white will be ahead in any race. And that's a really nice move by Magnus Carlsen. I've seen him play so many queen endgames. He always knows when to centralise the queen. Queens are dominant in the centre of the board, and now Magnus, not fearing any checks, he's going aggressive with his king. Also, look at the black king. It's actually cut off. It can never step towards the right now because white's queen dominates it. The black king is kind of caught in a cage, can only hang out on that left side of the board. And that's why white's going aggressive with his own king on the other flank. And now white gives a check, double attack, checking the black king and attacking black's pawn on the left-hand corner. It looks like Magnus, he's about to win this game. He's about to wrap it up. Maybe you still have to work a few things out. If you take that pawn as white, if you go and grab that pawn, you would have to deal with some checks. Magnus just gives another check himself instead.
Yeah, and all the time, Magnus is building up the time, and it's Hikaru that is seconds down on the clock. And just look at the control that Magnus is doing with his queen. You know, every single move, he's preventing checks. And Hikaru is desperately trying to hide his king behind some shelter. And Magnus, once again, moves his king and is not afraid of a few checks.
Yeah, that's a really nice strategy, actually. I mentioned that the black king couldn't get across to the right side. It has found its way, the black king, to that right side of the board. But as soon as the black king goes that way, white's king goes the other way. And white's king's going to the left suddenly. So Magnus just doing a bit of dodging, dipping, diving there, and he's outmaneuvered the opponent's pieces. And black's king now not contributing to the battle at all. It's essentially white's queen and king against the lone black queen. That's an extra piece for white. He's going to use that teamwork to win the game. And
look at that white king go. And of course, Magnus is setting all the traps because black cannot capture the pawn, which is now on prise, on account of white just sliding over with the queen and giving a check. And that is why Hikaru has moved his king, but it's just perfect strategy. The white king on the run, and it's headed one direction, to the left.
One direction, indeed. Meanwhile, Magnus continues centralising the white queen. White's king and queen there, occupying central squares. It's so beautiful.
Wow, yeah.
You barely even want to move those pieces. They look so good. Black's king, look at it, in the corner. Terrible. And white's king continues its journey. And look at it, the white king is not, it's not afraid.
Every move it makes, it just cannot be checked. I mean, what a beast that king is.
Complete domination.
Yeah, total. Hikaru is just really in the last throes of the game.
Yep, Hikaru in the last throes of the game just has to sit and hope and move the black king up and down. All Magnus needs now is a winning plan. And he's going for it. He's giving a check. He will quite likely bring the white queen over to that left side and help the white king start winning some pawns. And that's what to do in endgames. As long as you realise you won't get checkmated, if your opponent's only attacking you with one piece, go active with your king. Why not? And Magnus was able to do that just because he had that extra kind of bonus of the extra pawn. And Nakamura has to react to that check. Nakamura, just his body language, he knows it's over. He knows there's pretty much no hope at this stage. He's just making moves. Magnus, all he needs to do, as the computer suggests, as Stockfish suggests, bring the queen over, challenge the black queen, force that black queen to give way, and white, with that 2 versus 1 advantage on the left, is going to make a second queen quite likely.
Yeah. Wow. It's looking good for Magnus Carlsen, and he's really built up time on the clock as well. Dramatic for Hikaru. 15 seconds now.
I mean, it's the board, it's the clock, it's everything. And it was all that one mistake, that one trap he fell into earlier.
And look at Magnus, actually his strategy is just perfection in itself. Every single move he's made has been about overprotection of his pieces and dominance. And Hikaru, all he can do is just shuffle the black queen backwards and forwards, and it's no good at all. And that is a killer move from Magnus. Now
the black queen forced to run away. White's king can step closer to those black pawns. First, Magnus gives a check. He's going to give a couple of checks to re-centralise his queen. Magnus, we've said it so many times, normally when we're talking about the opening or the middle game, he knows exactly where to put his pieces, right? He keeps finding checks and gains time to centralize his queen. And black is attacking a pawn right now, so Magnus needs to defend it, but there are several ways to do that. He's just playing with his food.
Yeah.
And he checks again, centralizing his queen with tempo, gaining time to do that. And white's king is just going to step to that left now.
It's going to go to the left and it's going to hide itself. And again, once again, Hikaru cannot do a single thing about this. There you go. The king is now attacking the pawn and the king will hide itself behind the black pawn. And what can Hikaru do apart from just move the queen back to where it came from? And now Magnus just has a very pleasant choice. All he has to do is win that pawn, and those two pawns on the left will simply advance. And you can just see Hikaru shaking his head. He knows it's all over, and all because of that one big mistake.
And Magnus giving a few more checks, getting a bit more time on the clock. He's up to 2 minutes now. So he knows he's winning and he's eradicated any risk of losing on time. And yeah, just great strategy. And he moves his pawn forward, slowly advancing on every move.
Exactly. I mean, he doesn't give Hikaru one chance. No way has Magnus gone wrong at all.
We're running out of superlatives, Jovanka, for this play. It's just too strong.
It's just powerful. a model queen and pawn endgame. I mean, what can we say about this except admired perfection?
Is this what Magnus is expert in?
Yes.
I mean, endgames.
Yeah.
Even if the queens are on, we're calling this an endgame.
Yes, if it's just queens, it's definitely an endgame. It's a queen ending. And yeah, he knows exactly where to put the pieces, how to coordinate his pieces. That's the key thing. Also, he knows exactly when to run with his own king. And right now, white's king can actually take a pawn. But black's queen is also threatening one of white's pawns. So I expect to see Magnus just take a timeout, protect that pawn first, not take any risk, and then the pawn next to the white king is going to drop off within the next couple of moves, for sure. Nakamura trying his best. We should give him some credit. He's been fighting. Yes, he did blunder earlier. He missed this idea, but he's been fighting. Magnus now steps up with the queen. Forgetting about that pawn on the right side, which has been taken by the black queen, but white's king now snacking on a pawn, and there's a clear path for both of white's pawns, actually, to run down the board. Those two are going to be much quicker than black's one.
Yes, OK, and now the pawn has come down. I mean, is there any chance with Hikaru perhaps giving a few spite checks? And, well, Hikaru tries, you know, he pins the pawn and prevents it from advancing, but now the black king can simply actually step to the side. And it does that, sorry, the white king, can step to the side. And now, look, there's another pawn to make Hikaru's life miserable.
Yeah, two's always better than one when it comes to passed pawns, especially when they're connected, when they can guide each other, hold each other's hands and advance. And the white king, it will find a safe square because it can be sheltered by the white queen. There we go. And black can continue giving checks if he wants, but those checks will eventually run out.
And one thing I expect Magnus to do is actually position his king on the same line as the black king. And this just means that he can intercept any form of checks with potentially a queen, and there will be a pin against the queen and the king.
Yeah, that's very instructive. I expect maybe Magnus will step forward with his own queen first, and then he'll put his king along the 7th rank. Yeah, when you line up kings against each other, there's always tricks with checks and then kind of checks in reply. And
he moves his king to the 7th row, and
And yeah, sometimes we can't trust the analysis bar, but here it says 10.
Wow,
that's pretty trustworthy, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, that's simply because one queen is worth 9 points, 10 points. So white's about to make a second queen. That's why the advantage is 10. Simply.
Do you think Hikaru will keep going until that second queen is on the board?
Yes. He should keep fighting because queen endings, there's always a small chance that you might, your opponent might accidentally repeat the position, trying to run away from the checks, for example, or your opponent might put their queen far away and then you can continuously check forever. But here, white's queen is perfectly placed to guard her king.
So Magnus needs to be accurate here.
Yeah, still.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. Still a little bit of work to be done, but everything so far has been mightily impressive. And he's not rushing. That's the key thing.
Yeah, but Hikaru needs to rush. 18 seconds left on the clock. What will he do? OK, moving his queen.
He gives one more check. The king does step back. And notice how black can't... Well, black didn't have time to go and pin white's pawn anymore because black's own pawn was under fire. And the race has started, but white is ahead in this race. Also, white's queen protects the promotion square of black's pawn. So even if black were to get his pawn one square further down, white's queen would easily stop it.
Yeah, well, the pawn has advanced one more square, and I guess the only thing that Hikaru can do is... I was going to say not much, actually, now I think about it. Give up.
Yeah, but we might see 4 queens on the board. That would be cool. OK, I thought Hikaru might push his own pawns down and make another queen, but... yeah, white would have queen first, and then when black promoted, white would have had the first move. He would have been able to give checks.
Magnus looks a bit shocked, actually. He did not see that move by Hikaru.
Oh, wow.
He's really cross with himself.
Actually, Magnus has to be really careful here suddenly. Hikaru has found a trick. I think there's only one move which wins cleanly. Probably a few moves win, but the cleanest move, there we see it.
Oh, wow.
There's a big difference between white's 3 choices here. You have to protect your queen. It's in a pin. You don't want to play queen takes queen because then we'll go into another queen position. Magnus finds the best move. And now black's pawn cannot advance. That was a key move by Magnus Carlsen. Black's pawn cannot advance. It's protecting the black queen. So now he's frozen black. And
So Hikaru's best shot is probably just to go queen takes queen. And after the queen is captured, push his own pawn.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this isn't necessarily the most optimum strategy.
Yeah, we see it just below the player's camera. Is queen takes queen's the only move. Otherwise, it's plus 100.
Oh.
So that's a pretty big margin.
But he is thinking about it. 17 seconds to go, and he doesn't do it.
He doesn't do it.
Then we go to 100.
We're heading to 100. When the computer says plus 100, it's essentially because it sees an immediate win. There's just a clean win, maybe even a forced checkmate. OK, a computer's horizons are far further than a human, so we should kind of take it tongue-in-cheek. But here, white's winning moves are all very logical.
Yeah, I mean, what's to stop the king from just advancing? OK, Magnus gives a check.
Wow, his visualization of the board. I would be looking at pushing pawns, focusing on that top left-hand corner. Magnus, he uses every possible square, brings his queen down the bottom, then he'll swing it across, then he'll do everything with it. Impressive stuff by the world champion.
Yeah, he's very flexible, very universal. We kind of mentioned it a few times, how adaptable he is to different situations. I mean, I certainly agree with you, David. I was expecting Magnus simply just to push the king 1 square forward and...
break the pin.
Break the pin and threaten to promote your own pawn.
Yeah, white's pawn cannot promote right now because it is pinned by the black queen against the white king. So why not step that king forward? Why not just prepare to make that second queen? But OK, maybe it was more effective on the last move. Right now, you feel that the white king and white queen aren't properly coordinated. So it's a bit strange of Magnus to play that move I actually praised, bring the queen the whole way down without having an idea in mind. But he loves his centralization. He loves putting his queen in the center of the board, stopping black's pawn from advancing as well. It would just be taken. So Magnus playing for domination rather than playing for checkmate.
Hikaru shaking his head. Is
3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. 1 second he had left. Sorry, Kaya.
Yeah.
I interrupted there.
No, absolutely. Oh, and there he resigns. It's over. Hikaru Nakamura loses the 3rd game in the first match in the final. Magnus Carlsen winning and saying something. And we definitely see a smile on the world champion's face, getting the first win in the final. And, oh...